Welcome to my channel. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English stories. Becoming fluent in a new language is a dream many people have. The idea of speaking smoothly, understanding everything, and not struggling to find the right words is very exciting. But for most people, this dream feels far away. They face many challenges along the way, and some feel like they will never reach their goal. The journey to fluency can be long and difficult, but it's also rewarding if you stay determined. Imagine a young boy named Lara. Lara loved listening to songs and watching movies in a language he didn't fully understand. Every time he heard someone speak in this language, he dreamed of being able to do the same. He imagined himself traveling to other countries, making new friends, and feeling confident speaking in this new tongue. But there was a problem. Every time he tried to learn, he got stuck. Words were hard to remember, and sentences didn't make sense to him. Lara's first lesson was filled with excitement. He picked up a few new words and he tried to use them in conversations. But soon he realized that learning a language wasn't just about knowing a few words. It was about being able to put them together, understand others, and express yourself clearly. He felt overwhelmed. Many learners like Lara feel this way when they start. The excitement quickly turns into frustration. When you start learning a new language, it's like walking into a large forest. Everything seems unfamiliar. The trees, the paths, the sounds, they all seem strange at first. You might feel lost. You can't see the end of the journey, and it's easy to feel like you'll never get there. But with time and effort, the forest starts to make sense. You begin to see clear paths, and the sounds become more familiar. The same thing happens when learning a language. One of the most common problems people face is fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding silly, fear of not being understood. This fear can stop you from practicing, and without practice, it's hard to improve. But here's a secret. Everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language. Even native speakers make mistakes in their own language. The key is not to let fear stop you. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a good thing because it means you're learning. Lara had a big fear of making mistakes. Whenever he spoke, he was scared that people would laugh at him or not understand him. Because of this, he often stayed quiet, even when he wanted to speak. But one day he met a friend who also spoke the language he was learning. This friend told him, "Don't worry about mistakes, just speak. The more you speak, the better you'll get." This advice changed everything for Lara. He started speaking more, even if it wasn't perfect, and guess what? People didn't laugh at him. They helped him, corrected him, and supported his efforts. Another problem many learners face is frustration with slow progress. After weeks or months of learning, it can feel like you're not getting anywhere. You still don't understand everything, and speaking feels just as hard as it did in the beginning. This is normal. Language learning takes time. It's not something you can master in a few weeks or months. It's a long process, and there will be moments when it feels like you're not improving. But the truth is, every time you practice, every time you learn something new, you're getting closer to fluency. It's important to set small, achievable goals. If your only goal is to become fluent, you might feel discouraged because fluency is a big goal that takes time. But if you set smaller goals, like learning 5 new words a day or being able to hold a basic conversation, you'll feel more motivated. Each small success will give you the energy to keep going. Lara found that setting small goals helped him a lot. Instead of focusing on being fluent, he decided to focus on one thing at a time. One week, he focused on learning how to introduce himself. The next week, he worked on asking for directions. Each week, he added something new to his knowledge, and slowly, his confidence grew. He started having short conversations with people, and even though he still made mistakes, he was proud of how far he had come. Practice is key to language learning. You can't become fluent just by reading books or taking lessons. You need to use the language as much as possible. Speak with others even if you feel shy. Listen to the language in songs, movies, and podcasts. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more natural it will become. One way to practice is by finding a language partner. This is someone who speaks the language you're learning and is willing to practice with you. You can help each other. Maybe they want to learn your language too, so you can take turns practicing. This way, you both benefit, and because you're both learning, there's no need to feel embarrassed about making mistakes. Another great way to practice is by immersing yourself in the language. If you can visit a country where the language is spoken, even if it's just for a short trip, being surrounded by the language will push you to use it. You'll hear it everywhere, on the streets, in shops, on the radio, and this will help your brain get used to it. If traveling isn't possible, you can still immerse yourself in the language by watching movies, listening to music, or reading in the language. Lara found that listening to songs in the language helped him a lot. At first, he didn't understand much. The words were too fast, and he couldn't keep up. But after listening to the same songs over and over again, he started picking up words and phrases slowly. The songs became more familiar, and he could sing along. This made him feel more connected to the language and gave him the confidence to keep learning. Another important tip is to be patient with yourself. Learning a language is not something that happens overnight. It's a journey, and like any journey, it has its ups and downs. Some days, you'll feel like you're making great progress. Other days, you'll feel stuck. This is normal. Don't give up on the difficult days. Keep going, and remember that every step you take brings you closer to your goal. Lara had days when he felt like giving up. He would try to speak, but the words just wouldn't come out. He felt frustrated and wondered if he would ever become fluent. But then he remembered how far he had come. He remembered the days when he didn't know any words at all. Now, he could hold simple conversations and understand basic sentences. This gave him the motivation to keep going. One of the most powerful tools for language learning is repetition. The more you repeat something, the more it sticks in your brain. When you learn a new word, try to use it in different sentences. Write it down, say it out loud, and try to use it in a conversation. The more you use the word, the more natural it will feel. Lara used this method to learn new words. Whenever he learned a new word, He would write it on a piece of paper and carry it with him throughout the day. He would look at the word and try to use it in a sentence. By the end of the day, the word didn't feel new anymore. It felt like something he had always known. Consistency is also important. It's better to practice a little bit every day than to practice for hours once a week. Even if you only have 10 minutes a day, use those 10 minutes to practice. Over time, those 10 minutes will add up, and you'll see progress. One thing that helped Lara stay consistent was making language learning a part of his daily routine. Every morning, while eating breakfast, he would listen to a short podcast in the language. Before going to bed, he would read a few pages of a book. These small habits made a big difference over time. It's also important to make learning fun. If you only focus on grammar and rules, language learning can feel like a chore. But if you find fun ways to learn, you'll enjoy the process more. Watch movies, read comic books, play games, or sing songs in the language. Find something you love and use the language to enjoy it. Lara loved watching movies, so he started watching them in the language he was learning. At first, he used subtitles in his own language to help him understand. But as he got better, he switched to subtitles in the new language. Eventually, he could watch the movies without any subtitles at all. This made learning feel like a fun adventure instead of hard work. Surround yourself with people who support your learning. Find friends, teachers, or online communities who encourage you and celebrate your progress. It's easy to feel discouraged if you're learning on your own, but when you have others cheering you on, it becomes easier to stay motivated. Lara joined an online language group where people from all over the world practiced together. They would have weekly video chats where everyone could speak in the language they were learning. It was a safe space to make mistakes, learn from each other, and celebrate small victories. Being part of this group made Lara feel less alone in his journey. As you continue learning, remember to be kind to yourself. Don't compare your progress to others. Everyone learns at their own pace, and that's okay. Some people might learn quickly while others take more time. What's important is that you keep going, no matter how long it takes. Lara had a friend who seemed to learn the language very quickly. This made Lara feel like he wasn't good enough. But then he realized that everyone's journey is different. His friend had more time to practice and had grown up in a bilingual family, which gave him an advantage. Once Lara stopped comparing himself, he felt more at peace with his own progress. Fluency is not just about speaking perfectly. It's about being able to communicate. Even if your grammar isn't perfect or you don't know every word, you can still be fluent. Fluency means being able to express yourself, understand others, and have meaningful conversations. So, don't aim for perfection. Aim for communication. Lara learned this lesson when he had his first real conversation with a native speaker. He was nervous, and his grammar was far from perfect, but the person he was talking to understood him, and they were able to have a fun conversation. This made Lara realize that fluency wasn't about speaking perfectly. It was about being able to connect with others through language. In the end, The dream of fluency is not just about learning a language. It's about opening doors to new experiences, new cultures, and new friendships. It's about pushing past your fears, staying patient, and enjoying the journey. Every word you learn, every conversation you have, brings you one step closer to your dream. So, if you're on the path to fluency, don't give up. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep believing in yourself. It might take time, but you will get there. Just like Lara, you'll look back one day and realize how far you've come. And when you do, you'll feel proud of every mistake, every challenge, and every small victory that helped you reach your goal. As Lara continued on his journey toward fluency, he discovered more about himself and the learning process. Each small success felt like a step toward his dream, but he also realized that it wasn't just about speaking perfectly. It was about understanding the culture, the way people express themselves, and how language connects people on a deeper level. His mistakes became lessons, and every word he learned brought him closer to understanding the world through a new lens. One of the most important things Lara learned was to enjoy the process. Many people give up on learning a language because they focus too much on the difficulties. They worry about grammar rules, how many words they don't know, or how slow their progress seems. But Lara found that when he started enjoying the little moments, like understanding a joke in the new language or being able to order food in a restaurant, his motivation grew stronger. One of the biggest tips he discovered was to celebrate small wins. Language learning is a long journey, so it's easy to feel like you're not making any progress. But every time you understand a new word, use a phrase correctly, or have a short conversation, that's progress. It's important to recognize and celebrate those moments, no matter how small they might seem. Lara also started keeping a language journal. In this journal, he wrote down every new word he learned, the phrases that confused him, and his thoughts about his learning experience. This helped him see his progress over time. On days when he felt discouraged, he would look back at his journal and realize how much he had learned since the beginning. It gave him the confidence to keep moving forward. Another great tip Lara learned was to use the language every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Using the language daily helps keep it fresh in your mind. This doesn't mean you have to sit down with a textbook every day. You can practice in fun, casual ways. For example, Lara liked to change his phone settings to the new language. This way, he was constantly reading and using it in his everyday life without even realizing it. You can also listen to music, watch short videos, or follow social media accounts in the language you're learning. The more exposure you have, the more natural the language will feel. Consistency is much more powerful than cramming. Many learners make the mistake of trying to learn a lot at once, but then they get burned out. Lara found that it was better to study a little every day than to study for hours once a week. Even just 10 minutes of practice a day can make a big difference over time. Lara also learned to embrace making mistakes. At first, he hated making them. Every time he said something wrong, he felt embarrassed. But then he realized that mistakes are actually a good thing because they show you where you need to improve. If you never make mistakes, you're not challenging yourself enough. So instead of avoiding situations where he might make mistakes, Lara started seeking them out. He would try to have conversations with people even if he knew he wasn't perfect yet. The more mistakes he made, the faster he learned. Another important tip is to immerse yourself in the culture of the language. Language is more than just words. It's a reflection of the culture and the people who speak it. By learning about the culture, you'll understand why certain phrases are used and how people communicate in different situations. For example, in some cultures, politeness is expressed in very specific ways through language, and understanding these cultural nuances can help you use the language more naturally. Lara started watching movies and reading books from the country where the language was spoken. He learned about their traditions, humor, and even how people express emotions differently. This not only helped him with vocabulary and expressions, but also made him feel more connected to the language on a personal level. Another helpful strategy Lara used was to surround himself with the language. One way to do this is by creating a language-rich environment at home. Lara labeled objects in his house with sticky notes in the new language. Every time he opened his fridge or used his phone, he saw words in the language he was learning. This constant exposure helped reinforce vocabulary without feeling like hard work. Learning with others also made a huge difference. Having a study buddy or language partner can make the learning process more enjoyable and less lonely. Lara found a friend who was also learning the same language, and they would meet once a week to practice speaking. This helped Lara stay motivated and made the learning experience more fun. They would encourage each other, share tips, and laugh over their mistakes. If you don't have a language partner in real life, there are many online communities where you can find people to practice with. Speaking of online communities, Lara also discovered the power of using apps and online resources. There are many language learning apps that make it easier to practice vocabulary, grammar, and even pronunciation. Some apps use gamification, turning language learning into a fun and interactive experience. These apps often have daily challenges, and Lara found that completing these small goals gave him a sense of achievement. Plus, it was easy to fit a 5-minute practice session into his day whenever he had free time. But technology isn't just about apps. Lara also joined online forums and language exchange websites where people from around the world practice languages with each other. These websites allow you to connect with native speakers who want to learn your language, so you can help each other. Lara would spend an hour speaking in his native language, and then his language partner would spend an hour helping him practice the new language. This exchange was free and incredibly valuable because it gave him real conversation practice. Another valuable tip is to be patient with yourself. Learning a language is not a race. It's easy to get frustrated when you don't understand something or when progress feels slow, but remember that everyone learns at their own pace. Some people might pick up certain skills quickly, while others take more time, and that's okay. The key is to keep going, even when it feels difficult. Lara reminded himself that fluency is not an endpoint, but a process. Every time he learned something new, he was making progress. It helped to think of learning a language like planting a garden. At first, you don't see much happening, but if you keep watering and taking care of the plants, they will eventually grow. The same goes for language learning. If you put in the effort and stay consistent, you will see results over time. Listening is just as important as speaking when it comes to language learning. Many learners focus on speaking and forget that listening is a critical part of fluency. If you can't understand what others are saying, it will be hard to have conversations. To improve his listening skills, Lara started listening to podcasts, radio shows, and even news broadcasts in the language. At first, it was overwhelming, and he didn't understand much, but as he kept listening, his brain started to pick up patterns, and slowly he began to understand more and more. If you're struggling with listening, start with content that is appropriate for your level. You don't have to jump into advanced podcasts right away. There are plenty of language learning materials designed specifically for beginners or intermediate learners. These are great because they use simpler vocabulary and speak more slowly. Over time, as your listening skills improve, you can challenge yourself with more advanced content. Lara also practiced shadowing, which is when you listen to someone speaking and then repeat what they say, trying to mimic their pronunciation and intonation. This is a great way to improve both your speaking and listening skills at the same time. You can shadow songs, movies, or any audio that you enjoy. Not only does this help you sound more natural when you speak, but it also helps you remember new phrases and sentences more easily. Another tip is to focus on learning phrases, not just individual words. When you learn a new word, it's helpful, but when you learn it in the context of a sentence, it's even better. Learning phrases allows you to understand how words are used in real-life situations. Plus, it gives you ready-made sentences you can use in conversations. For example, instead of just learning the word for thank you, learn the phrase, "Thank you so much for your help." This gives you a more natural way to express gratitude and helps you remember the word better because it's tied to a real-life scenario. Grammar can be tricky, but it's important not to get stuck on it. Many learners get frustrated by grammar rules and feel like they need to master them before they can speak. But the truth is, you don't need to be a grammar expert to have a conversation. In fact, most native speakers don't think about grammar rules when they speak. They just speak naturally. Lara found that focusing too much on grammar slowed him down, so he decided to focus more on communicating and less on being perfect. He would still study grammar, but he didn't let it stop him from speaking. Finally, don't give up. There will be times when you feel stuck, frustrated, or discouraged. That's part of the learning process. But if you keep going, you will get better. Fluency is not a straight path. There are ups and downs, but each challenge is an opportunity to learn something new. Lara's journey to fluency was filled with challenges, but each challenge made him stronger. Every mistake was a lesson, and every small victory brought him closer to his goal. In the end, it wasn't just about learning a language. It was about gaining confidence, connecting with new people, and experiencing the world in a different way.